Hello and welcome to another episode of The Card Show. Hope everyone is doing well. Another week has gone past. Another crazy week, we say. We've had the first, or inaugural, the first London Card Show X Fanatics collectible store sort of trade event. We've seen NFL come up to Ireland, some last gasp goals galore, some that meant big, I don't want to say big, but it is sort of big swings in Premier League title race, some that meant not much, in the Man City 2 goals in the last 2 minutes of the game, which is kind of crazy from Haaland, with 93, 95. Obviously no F1 this week, so that was down. In other sort of NFL news, I suppose, the Fanatics Fest exclusive football football shirts, jerseys are available. They seem to just hit the UK site, NFL Europe, or it was, and Fanatics Europe, doing on the US site, which I don't know. I was hoping to get them for like $18. Obviously, dollars to pound ratio, save a bit of money, which is kind of annoying. But hey ho, ordered the KC one. Would be nice. It does give me some vibes. They're obviously red, yellow, white, and we're going into winter. Or autumn now, winter. I don't know what it is, but whatever. I'm happy I've got mine. They did allow personalization, which is kind of interesting. I actually did it 'cause I thought it was free. I did the obligatory Mahomes 1.5, and then they wanted £15 for it, so I took that straight off. I didn't think it was a £95 jersey. £80 I was a little bit happier at. Did manage to dig out a discount code, though, didn't lie, so that did help. But yeah, this pod though is answering a few questions. I had a few questions that sort of, a few similar, a few same over the last few months. I've not done a Q&A for a while, so I thought I'd best do another pod answering those questions, just because maybe you guys listening who don't message me these questions have the same questions. If that makes sense, and that's what these Q&A ones are for. I do try and do them periodically, just not consistent with that periodically timed table, should we say. Second, anyway, so the first question. eBay Live is starting to roll out in the UK. Do I believe it will take over Whatnot, or will Fanatics Live be the main live platform? Interesting. I mean, I'm sure people had this now. There was a whole thing when the whole What and Whatnot clearly won that one. Fanatics supposedly had loads of stipulations in the contracts. So that is what that is. I've always said eBay is the best place to sort of buy and probably maybe not sell cards. Probably easiest. Is it easiest? I don't know. It's definitely probably the most liquid place to sell cards, right? You're always going to sell it on eBay, whereas if you're on a live platform, this before the eBay live platform, if you're on a live platform like Whatnot or Fanatics, you're sort of hoping that then people, when they're going to follow you to know that you've got a show on, or someone comes out that precise time, or see the bookmark and want to go onto your show, and too interested in that card, right? It's all about good. Me saying I'm selling some of my Chiefs collection stuff, for instance, and I'm going to have a show on Friday night, and people have plans on Friday night. You people may not be that interested. So I might be doing a break, and doing pound spots, and they go, let's see what's going on there. I'll flip back onto the show, and they flip back onto mine. And guess what? I've listed the card they're interested in. And they go, well, nothing else I'm interested in. Flip back across. So there's always that. eBay, you can go and scroll for hours, can't you? You can type in, Wayne Rooney, Manchester United auto, ending soonest, and search and just scroll, and it could end from anywhere time for a minute, and you keep going to 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. you can go on new listed and try and get something that's listed maybe a little bit below comps, and you think, oh, so what's new listed? When people are seeing it, it's just below last comps, so maybe you just pick it up now, just buy it now, or cheek it off and see what happens. So yeah, I think eBay always has that thing, and how they do live, always like getting bigger in the UK. Yeah, I do think it's like the number one place. I mean, the other thing is as well, like not everyone will have Whatnot on the phone or Fanatics Live on the phone, right? Or iPad, etc., etc. But everyone in the freaking grant has eBay, right? Like it's just sort of like a vintage sort of thing. It just seems like a thing that a lot of people have. It's people who don't have like cards. Like Fanatics is this Fanatics sort of problem, quote unquote, for people listening. Is obviously it's dedicated to sports cards. I think they might do like memorabilia stuff, like signed helmets and stuff like that, and that emanate stuff, which are more like posters. Whatnot, at least they have the option of they do have a lot of other sellers on there, right? So they not only appear at card shows and show their presence, but they're also at sort of sneaker cons and stuff like that. And I don't know if they've been at a Clove one. I'm sure I've seen something on a post where they're at like a I don't know, it's like a vintage Clove fest or 10 kg bag things, or you just bag your clothes at 10 kg, get a bag of 10 kg worth of clothes. So I think they've done something similar or sponsored something like that. I think trying to get into that the clothing as well. So you see a lot of people selling secondhand clothes or vintage clothes, quote unquote, retro or sort of nonsense. Trainers and sneakers, cards. I don't know if I've seen it in this country yet, but I'm 99% sure I saw someone like selling cookies and whatnot. So they have like different avenues, but the problem is then is when you're branching out like this, like I said, these people also have eBay. You know, and eBay's fees as well. Don't forget, it's now buyer protection fee as opposed to seller fee. Whatnot, I'm gonna presume Fanatics Live have still a seller fee, right? Is it 10% or something like that? So yeah, eBay is always gonna be my one. I don't know how it works well about Fanatics if you can shop US on there. Because obviously with the eBay app, for instance, you just toggle away from US and that's it, boom. You can open up a wide array of stuff, right? Whereas if it's UK, only still allow you because obviously the way they do their shipping scenario. That's another thing to think about. But yeah, eBay for me. Not to ramble on too much there. I think it's going to be the one. I do think Fanatics Live will be number two, just because of the stuff they put in the contracts and all the new products, especially when stuff becomes licensed. Whatnot will, will continue to exist, but maybe it'll be a little less so in the card space. We shall see. What do you think of this question number two? What do you think of Angry Ginge tearing up the card? Yeah, it was a 1-of-1 Lee. I can't remember the Lee's player card. I can't remember who the player was. It's unfortunate that this is what's happened. He was at the local card show, cards is a card convention up in Manchester. Obviously, he's a Manchester lad. I believe he was there. I mean, I don't know who their sort of contracts with. If it is Tops, Fanatics, Whatnot, because I think was it Bez who's on Whatnot maybe. But yeah, this is the other issue we're getting now, right? Maybe I'll do a pod on this again, but the hobby now is no longer a kid hobby. Let's be honest. You can go back a year or two ago and so people say, "Oh, it's funny because it's a kid's hobby, but grown men." Now it's no longer a kid's hobby. It's big business, and that's why the big businesses are hiring these influencers. They've all now got Instagrams about cards, YouTube, separate YouTube channels now about cards. They're doing lives. That's all it is, and again, they're doing it for content, right, for themselves as well. So it's a massive shame. Imagine if you collected that guy. That's a 1-of-1, ripped, done, never to be seen again, never to be collected, never to be owned by people. Um, so yeah, that's the downside to it because they don't care. Like, he does not care, does he? He's getting paid. He doesn't care about the collectors. He doesn't care about you guys. He doesn't care about the investors. You know, that are doing this to pay their bills because guess what? He made some good content. He gets his bills paid, and he's getting paid from whatever contract he's got with whatever company it is. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame the hobby's heading that way, but it is what it is, right? And I suppose one of the things, well, like we sort of let it happen, right? We don't like we're protesting all these things and stopping it. So that is what that is, unfortunately. Question 3: how do I identify cards to purchase, whether that is for PC or to make money on, or what percent profit in the future, but same thing. I suppose it's like I say double-sided question. So there's like a three-pronged answer, really, because if I'm looking for, if I'm trying to identify, so yeah, obviously it's always like the right player, the right card, and the right time, right? That's not what I meant by three-pronged. But what I mean is, when I say it's like a numerous pronged sort of answer, is to identify cards. Obviously, you could mean by looking on eBay, your whatnot, but looking for eBay and looking at the card and seeing if it's the right card to purchase. Because of if it's raw, is everything looking good? Are the edges looking good? Is it looking well centered? Are the pictures of good quality, good lighting, etc., etc. Does the seller have previous batch feedback from people saying this guy just sells damaged cars that he's tried grading or grading it and cracked open? You can tell this, that, the other. So those sort of things of looking into, or also identifying is where I sort of visualize the market going in 6 months' time and make sure I pick up them cards 6 months prior, sort of thing. So the first answer is, you sort of know the grading scale. It's not hard to sort of go onto PSA, SGC, CGC, MGC, etc. They all have grading scales. What they're looking for, what would make it, what would make it a 7, what would make it a 9, what would make it a 10. Granted, there's a lot of things you won't be able to see on, usually pictures. I think there's only a handful of top sellers that will use scanners, and even scanners, the image they put on doesn't really capture like surface stuff. I think that'll change though. I think there'll be an AI sort of scanner that similar to what AGS have, so where people will buy it. I think more than, again, the handful of actual businesses will, because then they can put a scan up and it can show you the surface and the cellular and the center and have a good sort of little grading scale by it. Maybe it'll mean less people will go actually send in raw cards to sell on eBay, but again, it's a quick turnaround of cards, right? If you have it raw and you don't want to wait, currently, was it 4 months now at PSA? 4 months to sit on cards is a lot, especially if you have a number of a big player, right? So, not to go on too much of a tangent, but yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Try and look at the pictures, try and get them detailed. Don't forget there is a zoom option on eBay. Yeah, it's probably the best bet. I think it's always easy as well, is if there's ever a numbered card, seeing on like a PSA database, if that's already been graded. Obviously easy if it's like a 1 of 1, etc., and 1 of 5, you can sort of see. And if it's that 1 and it was graded an 8 or a 7, then obviously this person just cracked it. You can go, okay, well, in my mind, this is what it's going to get again. Is it worth this? Da 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 da. But yeah, when it comes to sort of prospecting, so we say, on what cards am I identifying, I think market movies is a massive help in that. And the reason why is because obviously it has so much historical data. I'm a big fan of the data points and sort of selling points, highs, lows, and you can sort of see, then the different sort of athletes, but different sports, and how interesting it is at different times of the year, but also similar times in the seasons, and then the spikes are at. So yeah, that's always been a big help. And again, if you want them that sort of tools, I mean, obviously I have a discount code, the affiliate code for myhomesapp.com. That is Mahomes, Mahomes. And that's a 14-day free trial and 20% off any package you choose for life. But again, there's others out there. I just don't find them as good, like 130 point, etc. And even eBay sold and completed. Is going to find comps, that sort of stuff. But yeah, I just like the data charts very easy to negate for myself on Market Movers. I think Card Hedge would do something similar, to fair. That was quite easy to negate. I just don't think they had as many cards on their registry as Market Movers. But anyway, yeah, so I look at that and I look at sort of players that it's a bit like going where they ain't sort of thing. You know, whenever I see zigging, try and zag a little bit. It's not so much high risk, high reward. We know sort of the national into sort of like August, September time. The hype is, for the NFL, right? It's coming back. You start seeing your first sort of products as well for this sort of stuff. So let's keep talking about NBA. So no one's really talking about Victor Wembanyama. So no one's talking about your Steph Curry's, LeBron James, or as much. Whereas in a few weeks' time, middle of October, November, that's what it's going to be. And December is kind of a lull. People sort of went to get some money for Christmas presents, etc. And then obviously going into January, it's all about playoffs and this, it's sort of knowing ebbs and flows and sort of going where they are. And again, sometimes it's a bit of guesswork, right? Like this year, I went for CJ Stroud, Victor Wembanyama. Not really working out for CJ at the moment. I thought Joe Burrow was going to have a good year as well. Luckily, I didn't go too heavy on Joe Burrow. I think maybe one or two of his, if I remember correctly. Now he's out injured, so it's not always a win. But I still have cards that I don't mind holding on to and waiting for sort of next time, or maybe even for CJ, maybe continues around it, maybe will be a playoff still. That's again another important thing, right? The right card. Next up, PSA question Ed about cards being altered / cleaned after they once were very much against it. How do you feel about cleaning cards? Don't know why it was like so difficult for me to read that. Maybe it's just I'm tired. I don't know. But yeah, the gist of that one is obviously the whole like cleaning cards, grading and obviously PSA were sort of against it after the whole Kurt's card care scenario. And then they sort of, I remember this question. It was a while ago, though, right? I don't think it's new. They've done a new one. It was a question I had a few months ago. So talking about, would you be interested? Would you pay this amount? To clean the cards? I think it makes sense on PSA's part. Not like they need more money, but the amount of cards they're getting, I suppose it would it give them a little bit of breathing space? Maybe it would, right? Maybe it gives you a little bit more breathing space because your card then comes in, and if you've ticked like clean the card, so it's got the best chance of getting the PSA 10, maybe it goes to another division, right? So all of a sudden, I mean, I'm not even imagining it would be a 50-50 split, but they're getting like 500,000 cards like a week, for instance, and it's just like half of them people will go, yeah, clean it for $4, $5. The other half going, no, not with me. Sort of thing. I'm just going to send it. All of a sudden, you've got, instead of having 500,000 cards a week come through your system straight to grading, you've got 250,000, which go for grading. The other quarter are getting cleaned. You sort of delay the backlog a little bit and sort of filter them in, right? So maybe I've said 250, then you sort of filter in maybe half of that for the first week, right? So then what's that, 375, and then do it again the following week, sort of thing. I don't know. It's another excuse to sort of delay things and charge more money, though, right? It's an interesting turn of events as well, being against it all. I think the big thing is that obviously what people were concerned about with this cleaning stuff, whether it be misdemeanor Kurt's card carries the longevity. We don't have the historical data to say that, well, in 10 years' time, the residue of this affects the card. And, we sort of had that with slabs, right? Early slabs would have this issue with like UV lighting. People let them out, and all of a sudden cards would sort of yellowing a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, I think Kurt put a post up, didn't he? Like someone had, like a troll, someone had like slagged him off, like, oh, what's happened when the cards are just paper when they've all disintegrated in 8 years' time, wherever it may be. And I think Kurt's like, hey, just a quick hello from this card that was one of the first he did in his Kurt's card care stuff like 10 years ago. He's still in pristine condition. It's like, so that's always good. Personally, it's unfortunate that this is the way the hobby is, right? We're all after that 10. We're all after that perfect 10 because we know it just commands much more on the market space. So, people can do what they have to do to get it right. I don't have too much of an issue with it. I would, but on the flip side, I would be obviously more devastated if I purchased a big card for my personal collection that's a 10, and then in 5-10 years' time, it does have an adverse effects on it because it's been sealed in been used with Kurt's card care or Mr. Minty or whatever card care stuff comes out in the future, right? So I understand the hate towards it, but at the same time, unfortunately, is the sort of the market we're in at the moment. This sort of push for a 10. PSA supposedly made it stricter to get a 10 and harder, so it's going to that's probably going to skyrocket that scenario. Be interesting what happens with like 9s stuff like that, and if they change their scale, I think 8 5s, 9s, 5s, etc. But yeah, or do people go off PSA in general because of the turnarounds, the wait around, the money it costs, and the fact is, you start getting sending card there, getting 9s, send it off to elsewhere and get 10s sort of thing. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but currently I can't say I'm fully against any sort of card cleaning in that respect. Altering different ball game, if you're chopping little edges off and trimming cards that way, sort of thing, to make sure the edges are crisp, then that's a different ball game. But wiping it and cleaning it, getting like the finger residue off, that sort of stuff, I have little against that. Next up, being focused. Wait, that's man. There we go. Yeah. There we go. With so many shows currently in the UK, there seems to be more a division of TCG/Pokemon only shows to sports cards shows. Do you think this will be the way for the future? Yeah, I don't know. Is it more? I don't know. Division's the right word there. I think there is a lot of like TCGs, Pokemon shows, if you want to call them. Same with shops as well. Like, don't get talked about enough. I think there's a lot more of those sort of shops. I think the easier thing with those sort of shops, in some respects, is the sort of the other sort of stuff, the collectible space that sort of goes hand in hand with those sort of cards. We see it at card shows, right? If you sell Pokemon cards, you might even have a whole like ladder right behind you full of plushes of Pokemon stuff. Like, you're not really going to see. I can't remember anyone. Maybe elves, maybe back in the day. Maybe, but yeah, you're not really going to see a sports card vendor then have like a shelf behind you with like football big heads, or some sort of plushies. You may get a few like signed memorabilia stuff, like signed helmets or signed jerseys, odd few sales, that sort of stuff. But yeah, a lot of Pokemon stuff will have even key rings, artwork, all sorts, right? Yeah, it is a different ball game. I think I've noticed that some of the shows have kind of incorporate a lot more sort of sports in, which is kind of interesting. Um, I think now we're seeing sort of a few different sort of quote unquote companies doing shows around the UK. Um, so there's like one company that does maybe like 5 or 6 shows all around the place, like Sheffield, Swindon, something like that, Lincolnshire. Um, like just doing like loads of smaller sort of TCG shows, but they will sort of incorporate sports, but they probably have a handful of tables, if that. Then we've got obviously, I think we've only got 2 sports cards only UK shows currently. If that is correct, it may have changed. I know obviously the card fairs that I tend to are mainly. Well, that takes fairs. They're not even mainly sports, are they? But yeah, they sports and then like the otherworldly stuff, but also not really like Pokemon TCG sort of thing. Is what I'd say. Um, and then obviously with the bigger ones, your London, your Scotland, Northwest is split. Manchester Cardcon split, and then they have a spin-off one, Card Collision, which is TCG sort of Pokemon only. So there's plenty of options. I think it would be, yeah, maybe we could get another. Yeah, I just don't know if the sports card like only show would do as well if it had as many that the TCG slash Pokemon side of things do. But maybe I think you definitely do some more because I think both of them are all sort of down south. Like if you look at Milton Keynes, which isn't horrendous too down, like horrendously too down south, especially for me in Manchester. I think it's obviously less than or a lot less London card show because it's obviously for me it's London card show. It's to Euston, Manchester City, London, Euston Underground. Yeah, London Underground to I go to Vauxhall, then Vauxhall Overground to Esher, and it's like a 10-minute walk. Whereas Milton Keynes is Manchester Milton Keynes, and I think the show is literally like 5 minutes from the train station. Milton Keynes is like an hour, 35, 40, something like that. Whereas London's 210. So yeah, big difference. Big difference. Again, London 210 to Euston, and then hour or so on underground, overground, and walking. The XL will be different, but yeah, gets that bridge when we cross it. Yeah, another one is in Southampton as well. So again, from Manchester, that's like so far. I think it's a 4-hour train journey. I mean, Farnborough wasn't too dissimilar, but I did Farnborough for CardCon. I did Manchester to Reading, change, and Reading to Farnborough, and that took a good few hours. And I stayed like quite Farnborough Central, I suppose, which is not too far from the train stop, which was nice. But the walk was a good 10-15 from where I was staying. I stayed at Premier Inn. Just close to hotels, by the way. I don't know why I stayed at Premier Inn. Worked out well though. I enjoyed it. But yeah, that's. I hope that answers that question. I know I went on tangents yet again, but yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I suppose I didn't really answer is it the future? I do think it's going to be similar. I think there'll always be that division, but maybe you'll see the odd few. I mean, I think like there's not really a need if you're a sports card only show to sort of incorporate TCG. I think as we've seen with Manchester Cardcon, you can sort of just do your mix and then just do a TCG side only show. And that probably might be more of a thing. You might see it happen with other shows, like Sports Card Central, for instance. They might do Sports Card Central. They might do TCG Central. I say Central Sports Card Social. They might do TCG Social as a spin-off sort of thing. That's the way they want the business to go. I think mixed shows are still great. I think people will always love them to argue with mid shows, right? Oh, well, it's just more Pokemon or TCG and less sports. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these people who host the shows try and give you an equal split. It just happens to be that Pokemon TCG tables sell out 10x quicker than sports do. You know, but yeah, I think we'll continue to grow. I just think it'd be interesting what happens with Europe, really. Now that PSA is going to Frankfurt as well, it's going to be interesting. Going to be interesting. And touch on the Frankfurt thing. Look what the next question is. With PSA being in Germany, Frankfurt, do I think the turnaround times will be quicker? I really hope so. Maybe a Jess question, I suppose. Yeah, I presume it's going to take some time to get sorted. It'll be interesting if there's offers. I mean, it's done before. I can't remember when it's actually open. I believe it's open before like the World Cup, right? So that'd be kind of cool if there's like offers going forward. I was surprised at Frankfurt, but yeah, it's Europe. It's closer. It'd be interesting what happens for us in the UK. Obviously not being the EU, that scenario, but other than that, very interested. Very interesting indeed. I'm glad we have something like this. I mean, look at what's happened this last year. The Fanatics shop in London, and now PSA in Frankfurt, Germany. It's a positive sign. I'll say that. Positive sign. And last but not least question for this episode, anyway. There was a few more, but there were sort of not as many were similar to the ones that have been asked, So another time, maybe, when people ask the similar sort of questions, I can just group them up. And again, this one's a jest one. You've been saying for months that there's some big news coming. When will you reveal all, or is this just a joke? No, I'm the joke. I think I touched on this last time, or the pod before, maybe. Because I work on a few things. It started off as just a little something, and then it just sort of like I don't want to say snowballed. It just sort of came something else, and then conversation maybe zig, and another conversation maybe zag, and I don't know, just sort of looked at things differently, and decided to do certain things. So yes, there is something different, some big changes, some big things happening soon. I was tempted just to wait to the end of the year. I got a few holidays. I think I touched on this last night. I got a few holidays coming up. I got a few things. So it's like, just like get through this next like month or so, and the next Christmas, then I can just wait. Okay, this was happening from on. There will be I'll reveal this. There'll be a new channel, and the video recordings potentially might only be on that one channel, and the On the Lookout series, so like data dive stuff, will probably be on that channel. I'm tempted to just keep on both channels just for now, or for a bit, or for the foreseeable. I don't know, but yes, and it'll be a bit of a rebrand on certain things. Nothing that should affect it too much. And then Patrick Mahomes will be basically the Instagram, probably still the TikTok. Will be about the collection side of things. And then hopefully videos on the YouTube will be about card shows. Just sort of like, I think the pack rip is going to be like the passion for the hobby, and then sort of like the collection side of things, and then the new channel, the new stuff, which will be Insta. I'm not going to reveal the name just yet. Insta, TikTok, YouTube will be like the other side of things. Sort of like the flipper, the investor side of things. So yeah, and we'll reveal it all soon. Maybe I'll just pop up here, so I can put some branded merch in, and there we go. Currently, it's just a Jordan fleece trackie, so it's not Jordan. I'm not a Jordan collector or a Jordan investor, so it's okay. Don't have to worry about that. Well, again, thank you for another episode. Thank you for listening. I don't know what's going on with the votes, by the way, for the podcast of the year. I think they're done. I don't actually remember. But hey, we got an honorable mention, right? Win, lose, or draw. This is the podcast of the people. I was going to say the UK's only weekly podcast on sports cards, but I think the formerly known as For the Love of Cards podcast is now back. This is called the podcast about trading cards. So yeah, it looks like the boys Ben and Lee are back at it with a pod. So yeah, no longer a weekly, the only weekly. Obviously, Top Load podcast is fortnightly, and I'm sure there's other podcasts that may be TCG based that I don't know of or listen to that are weekly. But as far as I know, the UK's only sports / trading card. A little bit. We do have a little bit in trading cards podcast. So shout out you guys though, the real MVPs, for listening. Again, this is the People's Pod. Answering your questions, hopefully helping you guys collect, invest, and negate the BS in this hobby. But yeah, until next time, I shall see you Friday, if I remember correctly. Peace.